Hey everybody, welcome to what is effectively part 3 of, I think, 5 altogether. This is the video going over the Teraleak information. Previously, we had a look at the Pokemon trailer for Winds and Waves directly, and then we had a look at the actual official website, which didn't really contain any additional information, but it was fun to speculate a little bit. Today we're going to go through the Teraleak information. The Teraleak, if you don't know what that is it was a very, very large data breach for the Pokemon Company around, I want to say it's probably about 10 years ago now, probably not that far back actually. No, it definitely wasn't in 2016 because it's 2026 right now. I'd say more like 4, maybe 5 years back. It was that's when it all happened. Basically, someone in the Pokemon Company got tricked into a phishing scam. That's phishing PH, not F. And because of that, someone was able to access highly classified information on the server. Now, the kind there's good and bad to this. Obviously, it's bad. Someone got hacked. It's kind of interesting because we got a look into information we had previously never even dreamed of touching previously. So it's kind of cool in that regard, being able to see like the beta images and the sketch work and some of the concepts that were brought up for various Pokemon games that never, Pokemon that never quite made it to the final product for whatever reason. Um, the unfortunate side of it is that the Teraleak also leaked a bunch of information regarding Game Freak's employees, so past, present, and some future. So basically, it had like contact information, work history, names, addresses, that kind of thing, for people who had previously been on Game Freak's payroll, people who were currently on the payroll, and some people who they were looking into either, at the interview stage or whatever for talent. So in that sense, it's a very, very bad thing. And I want to be clear that I do not, I do not condone that kind of behavior. I want to be very clear on that. I do not think it's good that that information was leaked. I certainly won't be sharing anything like that in this video, so this is not what this is for. This is literally just going to go over the actual Winds and Waves information that was leaked. Now, bear in mind, the Teraleak, as I say, is about 4 or so years old at this point, so some of this information may have changed, some of it has been probably reworked, removed entirely, but it's kind of fascinating to be able to see what Pokemon have been planning for this game. Now, obviously, there may be some mild spoilers, so please look away now if you do not wish to be spoiled in the final game. You'll also notice that the visualizer has had a slight upgrade in the sense that certain symbols now appear. So the idea is that I wanted the visualizer to have symbols and shapes and stuff pop up depending on how the conversation goes. You'll see there's the shapes for all the Pokemon types in here, as well as a few bonus shapes like circles and stuff. You'll see those pop up mid conversation, mid sentence, and it's just a little fun graphical thing for you guys to enjoy whilst I rabbit on a little bit. Sometimes this is still a bit of a work in progress, so sometimes these symbols will pop up randomly. For some reason, the fire one likes to pop up mid conversation, even when it doesn't really have a place in the conversation. Is very bizarre. Also, yeah, shapes can transition from one to the other, so it's a fun little system, and I've enjoyed working on it and just sort of watching it slowly take shape. Okay. But seriously, moving on. So again, reminder: this is the Teraleak information. I don't condone what happened to the employees, and I hope they're all doing well. But we are going to have a look at this, and this is potential spoilers, but also potentially not spoilers. I think most of this information has probably changed. We are going to start off by looking at images and things, and then we're going to move on to like some of the speculative Pokemon. And in the video we do next, we're going to look at some of the leaks and rumors that have come out since. So let's just go down. We'll start. Some of the stuff in here is from the recent leaks, and I'll point that out as we go along. But yeah, please sit back, enjoy, and like I say, keep an eye out for those symbols, because how many can you spot? Triangle. Right, okay, so we're gonna skip most of this. I think Gaia, the original point of these games, they were meant to release this year, with DLC planned for 2027, but as we all know, the game's coming out in 2027. I suspect the reason for this, it seems like maybe it's due to the events of 2020 that knocked everything back a year. So the Pokemon franchise has been working on sort of a year behind itself. We're not going to touch on all of these, but I think it's important to note that Gaia in the timeline graphic is meant to represent winds and waves. We've also got Ikaku, which I believe was Legends Arceus, or one of the other Legends games. Ringo Seed, Mega Oasis, which I think Mega Oasis was actually Pocopia. Don't quote me on that. Mega Turtle, I don't remember what that's supposed to be. And I think Sudachi was actually... Yeah, it must be. I think Sudachi was Legends Arceus, and then Ikaku was Sword of Shield, because that has had the DLC. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So you'll see here as well, there's been a full leak Pokedex. We're not going to go into that, just because I don't want to jump into that straight away. If it appears on this page, we'll discuss it, but I don't think it does. So starting off, we have new images. The people who run Pokeos, which is where I'm getting all this info from, we're very happy. Very happily blurring out images, so that if you see a blocky glitch, that's them muting out a Pokemon. And you can see these are obviously early versions of the various terrain that you can explore. And I gotta say, even at this early stage, very clearly it looks really nice. Like, obviously a little basic maybe in some instances, but like the sky is clearly not finalized. But some of this stuff is really nice looking, and I can't wait to explore and see what kind of other environments are available. I love the lighting in this cave in particular. I don't know quite what's going on. There's not enough information to go off of. And I also kind of love this underwater segment. It's obviously clearly an early version of one of the segments perhaps that we saw in the trailer. I think this might be that. But you can see that this is, they had a very clear vision for this. And then we have, this has to be an early version of the Ice Island or Ice World or whatever it ends up being. The texture on this is a bit too rough for me to think that this is the final product. It could be the final product. I doubt it. It's too... Look at the ice in the middle there. It looks like something out of the 1990s, to be honest with you. But yeah, like I say, a lot of this information will have changed and updated since, so it's just fun to look at. Like here we can see that's very clearly meant to be the main central building, the resort that we were looking at in a previous video. Interesting to note that the trees, at the very least, seem to be like fully textured and are being lit up properly. I love that. That's a really, knowing that they worked really hard on getting everything looking right before implementing like story beat level stuff. I don't know, there's something about that that's really charming. And I think the rocks on the right as well, they're a little understated, but they're kind of nice to look at. They're got some nice bump mapping going on. And then this is an early concept for a city that apparently will be like the central hub of the game. You can see like there's a park in the middle with what I assume are meant to be like trees with like wooden structures around the bases, and you've got various skyscrapers and towers. The yellow tower, I think, is meant to be the quote unquote the Japanese insert for this game. Every single Pokemon game, no matter what generation it's in, has to have something referencing Japan because these games are a Japanese series, the developers are Japanese. They love shoehorning or shoving in something that's Japanese into every generation. I say this all the time. Not that it's always a bad thing, because, again, it's their home country. Naturally, they want to see it represented. But I kind of like the look of this, even though it's very clearly early day footage. You can see what I'd be interested to see what the main city is eventually called and how it compares to this. And then here we've got this nice looking savanna sort of area with a dark tree in the middle, which I assume is just an early prototype. That's skipping ahead slightly. But yeah, I think this looks really nice so far. Obviously, it's night and day. You can see certain things are still very early in development, but the trailer we got earlier this year looks really, really good, and I can't wait to see more locations in the final style. So map locations. This is where we start to get into more spoilery stuff. So we inside the files for Gen 10, they had a bunch of Japanese text describing the various islands. Some of them have names, some of them do not. But this image is meant to be what the region will look like. Now, it could be that some of these islands are hidden from you initially, and that you can't get to them until you have certain abilities like Surf or Fly or Strength or whatever. The capital city noted at the bottom is the city we saw the prototype of a few moments ago. I couldn't tell you where the other areas are, although I suspect Island 5 is meant to be the icy area, perhaps, or possibly Island 11. It's too hard to tell. Island 1 appears to have the volcano, which I assume is the same volcano we saw the Slugma in the trailer. Island 16 is curious as well because it kind of is right on the edge of the map, and I'm curious as to in Scarlet and Violet they just had a massive rock wall in the way that just represented that you cannot go beyond this point. This goes to Kalos, and we're not putting Kalos in the game. Everyone seems to want to go back to Kalos, and I don't know why. It's really weird. But yeah, there are 17 main islands and one uninhabited island. And as you can see, there's lots of little islands. I don't know if they count as part of the larger landmass, if they're their own thing. It's hard to tell. Excuse me very much. So just to go over the main islands, we have the uninhabited island, which is noted down there. This is another volcanic area. It's a bit blurry, but you can see, the entrances and stuff like that. You can see steam coming out of the volcano. And then apparently this is from the same island, so this is from the same basic area, presumably down where those trees are. It's a little blurry, so it's really hard to make out. So if this comes across as blurry, by the way, that's not me doing it. It's just how the images are shown. So I do apologize for that. Moving on, we have the hotel area, which is Island 1, so the central island of the map. And it's the starting location for your journey, but it also contains several really important locations because, it's the starting island. Of course it's going to have multiple locations that are going to be important. But you have the actual hotel itself, which is the big towering resort that we've seen in various images and videos. You've got lava area, which I assume is where the Slugma hang out. You've got the Margin Research Lab, which we'll come back to in a minute. The Woobat Tunnel, so Woobat are in the game apparently. We've got terraced rice fields. We've got the grass type gym. We've got bird ruins, mangrove forest. I wonder if there's going to be a mangrove Pokemon based on that information, because We did just get an olive Pokemon, and they do enjoy making fruits and vegetables into Pokemon for some reason, so I wouldn't put it past them. We've got something called Mount Symbol, which I don't know if that's the final name or not, but Mount Symbol and Mount Symbol Summit. I assume that's something to do with either a story beat or a legendary or a sub-legendary or something along those lines. We have Poke Center, we have the Pokemon, bridges, gazebos. Apparently there's going to be a cable transport, which I assume takes you up to the summit and back. The waterfront and core-like areas. We've got the relic and tower-like structure, which is, referenced in buried ruins. Island 2, which is, let me find it on here. It's the one in the sort of top left there. Should probably save that and then just have it alongside this, but I can't be bothered. Island 2 is the Poison Swamp area, apparently, and has another lava area as well as the Poison Gym. I wonder if Salandit's going to appear in this area, just because it's a Poison Fire type, and this seems like a good place to place it in the wild. Island 3 is the Grasslands and Anthill area, so this is probably where you get your basic grass types, your bugs, probably a few regional birds. Anthill Fieldlands is a bit of a curious one because I don't see any sign of an anthill anywhere, but maybe they're smaller than what we're used to. Who knows? Moving on, Island 4 is an archipelago. Let me just go back and have a look. Island 4, where are you? I don't see that any of these are labeled Island 4. I don't see an Island 4. There's a 3, there's a 5. I assume it says an archipelago, so it could be this little chain of islands in the bottom right there. I don't know what the numbering scheme is meant to reference. I don't know if the numbering scheme does mean anything. But that's the archipelago, so presumably you'll get lots of water types, maybe a couple of island-specific Pokemon, don't know. Island 5 is going to be your main snowy mountains and ice fields area. There is a drifting ice area, which I assume is like an ocean, a small lake or ocean with icebergs and Avalugg and other things floating in it. There's also a wasteland area, which is a bit unusual. Then we've got the Mash area and the power plant. There's a Margin research lab for the ice type. Again, we'll get into Margin shortly. Island 6 is the rocky desert coast, which, okay, it's got the sandy and rocky area, and then there's the flying gym on the island, so you'll be able to catch like Onyx and other rock types to take on the flying types. Island 7 is the Rock Formations Island, with Goro Rock Island. Goro, I believe, means rumbling or thunder or something like that. As I'm thinking back to Gorochu, which Chu is the sound a mouse makes, so I assume Goro is like lightning related, electrical related, something like that. This has the fighting type gym leader on it, so probably going to be some psychic types for you to catch, or maybe some. I assume you'll have a regional bird that carries you through this game, because they seem to like doing that for some reason. Island 8, you've got the capital city and the jungle. I think we've seen hints of the jungle in the trailer already. Again, remember that these are images from early builds of the game, so a lot of this information may be scrapped, may be changed, may be updated, we don't know. But Capital City has something called the group headquarters, which I assume is the villainous group. We don't know who the villains are of this game yet, they've not been revealed. Something called Pokemon Center Headquarters, which I don't think we've had a Pokemon Center Headquarters before. I assume it's some kind of massive Pokemon Center where, like, the Nurse Joys get together and they all just talk about healing and just, play games and hang out or something. Then you've got the Tor Company headquarters. We don't know what the Tor Company is just yet. I'm sure that will be revealed. The boutique, so you can change your appearance. TM shop, presumably to sell some of the more standard TMs as opposed to all of them. Then there's the hair salon, so you can change your appearing some more, and probably your Furfrou if they're available. Herbal medicine shop for those bitter medicines that Pokemon really hate. Island West Side is listed as a separate area, so I assume this is another like beach area where you can catch Pokemon. You've got the Ivy Jungle with the Jungle Cave. You've got another lava area. Makes me wonder how many fire types are going to be in this game, because that's two or three islands now with lava / volcanic areas. So maybe they're introducing a whole bunch or bringing a whole bunch back. I don't know. Then we have the Dark type gym, which makes I want to say, is it the third time we've had a Dark type gym? The first one was in Sword and Shield. Did I have a Dark type gym? No, it was team. It was the villainous team of the game. What were they called? Team Star or something? I forget. I'm going to be honest. I've totally forgotten most of Sword and Shield at this point. Most of Scarlet and Violet at this point. I don't remember that particular path very well. But yeah, that wasn't a dark gym so much as it was just a dark challenge. Margin Research Lab Ground, Will-O-Wisp Caldera, which I assume is an extension to the lava area, possibly with a ghost theming given the Will-O-Wisp name. Jungle 9, Island 9 is the jungle area with a normal gym. Normal gyms in the past have always proved somewhat challenging, so it will be interesting to see how tough that one is. Island 10 is the swamp area, and I believe that's the swamp we've seen in trailers already with the time pole and the what's it called? Venus Flytrap Pokemon, whose name escapes me at the moment. Island 11 is the Pokemon League and Blizzard area. So you've got a rocky area, a medium-sized town, the Steel Gym, the Champion Trial, which I assume is tied to the Pokemon League in somewhere. Then you've got Pokemon League Courts, you've got the Blizzard area, Glacial Lake, and Forest area, so this area appears to be mostly cold-based, and I assume Steel Pokemon will be available for the most part. Island 12 is the Desert and Ghost area, so I assume this is more of a graveyard sort of thing. There's a desert area with a stadium. There's a Margin Research Lab that seems to keep coming up for the rock type. An abandoned mine cave. We've got a Fieldlands area. Excuse me. We have a ghost island with a ghost mineral spring. No idea what that means. Interesting that the ghost type is taken on something more of a mythical / almost religious connotation in this game. That's very interesting. I'm curious as to how this works. Maybe you can bathe it and it heals your Pokemon sort of thing. That'd be kind of cool. Then we've got Island of Thorns. Island of Thorns and Thorn Path is a very simple theme. I can kind of see it already with maybe you have to burn the thorns away or something. That'd be kind of cool. Let's see. Then we've got Island 14, which is the Fairy Island with the Island Cave and a Fairy Gym, so presumably Clefairy and other Fairy types. Island 15 is just noted to be the southwestern island. Island 16 is the desert area, so presumably this is the main area for like Sandshrew and Cacnea and other desert-themed Pokemon. The only areas noted are Desert and Desert Cauldron. Remember, just because there's no area mentioned doesn't mean there aren't any. This is what we got from the early beta, like the super early beta. Island 17 is Jungle Ruins, island with the ruins and the Plateau Island. I assume Island 17 is actually where we may find the titular legendaries for this game, but I could be wrong. Open Ocean Area 1 with the Margin Research Lab for the Psychic type in the Neon Abyss. The image shown is for reference and is not the actual area. Let's have a look anyway. That is a Lumineon. Nice to see that. I don't know what that thing is below it though. I think it might be the player. It's either the player or a really weird Pokemon. Oh no, I don't want to go back. Oh. There are 8 open ocean areas, which I assume are the shallow water, and then you have another 10 deep sea areas, which again is the deep sea. And then you have the legendary temples, which one is wind, one is wave. Notably, there's no mention of a sky area, which says to me flying types don't get their own island. Although it could just be that because this is early, they haven't implemented, soaring through the sky or whatever mechanic it ends up being. It may just be that that wasn't in this build, and that might have been their next big plan, so to speak. But we'll see. Story spoiler, game start. So we have information on the story. Let's see. The game appears to begin on the capital island. From there, the player is taken to an airport and boards a flight that leads to an uninhabited island. Shortly after, the journey continues to the hotel island, which likely serves the initial hub and starting area of the game. As with all leaked information from this build, this sequence is subject to change in the final version of the game, so that could be how the game opens up. At the beginning of Teraleak, the official titles of Pokemon Gen 10 were unclear. The only information initially surfaced was an internal image listing the version names as Gaia K and Gaia N test. Immediately sparked speculation. Fans quickly theorized the letters stood for Kaze and Nami, which were wind and wave, which points, thematic focus on nature, the sea, and exploration. We're gonna skip some of this because not all of it is particularly interesting. Like, I find it interesting, but we don't have all night. I have to go to bed at some point. But this is some of the reference images they picked up. Whoa, what is that? That's a moth. Sorry, a moth just fluttered into my face. I hate these things. What is it? So yeah, this is some of the inspirational images that they used for the theming of winds and waves. I kind of like that this first one is literally just a picture of waves and a picture of like a funnel cloud formation, and then wind. Excuse me, wind acting on what appears to be a woman's scarf. And then we have these various cloud features, a surfer. We've got a really nice shot of some falls with a rainbow. There's a wildfire. I hope that's a wildfire. Imagine if they set the fire off themselves and were like, oh yes, we can take a picture of that. That'd be very nasty. Island with volcano on it. We've got jungle. The fact that they really took the time to go out of their way to look at this sort of thing is really what makes me excited. Look, they've got sunlight dappling through the trees, underwater areas, a little kid with a dolphin, which I didn't know was a thing. Some kind of owl. I like the photo bombing seagull. That's kind of funny. People riding on ostriches. Is it ostriches or is it ostrich for the plural? And then someone playing with an elephant. That's always fun. It's always nice to see. And then we come to some beta versions of the initial game. This is obviously reusing Nimona from the original game. That doesn't mean you play as Nimona, you play as the two-player characters we saw before. This is just whenever you make a new game, it's very easy just to bring in an alt asset just to use for testing purposes. So this was very clearly them, getting a feel for the scale and just how everything was going to sort of fit together. I love the fact that this sort of demonstrates as well that, you see the Charmander on the left there and you can see the glow from its tail. Then you've got the Snorlax under the tree. This is probably them testing the lighting and just making sure everything works the way they want it to. I'm not sure what that thing what's that on the left? Not sure what this thing's supposed to be, but looks like a pair of horns on a caterpillar or something. It's probably nothing. But that would be kind of funny if that turned out to be a Pokemon staring us in the face. But this is clearly a later version of the same engine because it's got really nice effects going on. Like, I love the shadow and the foreground, and the fact that the Eevee has a little bit of light on it because it's some of the sunlight has managed to get through the tree leaves. It's a really nice effect. What? Don't know what that was about. So we're gonna skip most of this because it is all just messing around. This is apparently the region. Excuse me. This is what the region was like. This is what the region's based on. So clearly they've taken a bunch of the islands. I want to say this is because you can see various areas, and as according to the text, Indonesia and Southeast Asia seems to be the basis for the region. Um, and it also mentions that because earlier reports suggested Greece as a region, but that appears to have been someone appears to have been misinformed. Um, I imagine some of these ships. I think some of these ships you can see are actually being reused for the islands, like the Sulawesi, the sort of sky blue island in the middle. You can see that sort of at the top middle left here on the main map. What else we got? And then, like, obviously simplified because this is a game engine at the end of the day. And then, what else we got? We got, I think the orange colored one is the sort of archipelago near the bottom of the screen. Yeah, and don't really think I can spot any others that are obvious, but that's kind of just how that's what it's based on. And then this is obviously this may not be the final map, but this will probably be very close to the final map. This is just obviously an early version of it. And then if you go down here, you can see this is how it all sort of fits together. Um, you can see very clearly there's lots and lots of um, there's lots and lots of different islands. I can't tell from this angle, but it kind of looks like that top one, that top middle one, kind of looks like it's floating, which I don't think is actually the case. I think it's just the way it looks in this flat plane. But it is interesting to see how it all fits together. Don't know what the star thing is on the bottom right. I think that's just a asset of some kind. Maybe it's a map marker. I don't know. But then if you go down, we've got height maps, which admittedly not too, not too interesting on their own. Then we come down to probably the thing everyone's most excited about. This new feature, which has previously been called Margin, but I think it's been called Netzoom, is what we've been hearing recently. But the margin gimmick is something to do with weather or similar effects. We don't have any real information on how it works, but this footage of a Pikachu where his body kind of undulates was shared around for a while. This seems to be either, some kind of early prototype as to how a Pokemon under the effects of this margin thing might look. I don't know if this is going to be in the final game. It could look completely different. I don't know if I dig it. I'm kind of 50-50 on it right now. I'd have to see it properly. But yeah, take the image, take this GIF with a grain of salt, because we genuinely don't know. I mean, a lot of this is just me going, I don't know. Next up, this is going to be a bit more spoilery than everything else. Gym types and structures. We have, let's see. I believe someone's leaked that you can visit the gyms in any order you want, and they will scale to your level, which is fantastic if that's true. But the types of gyms are going to be grass, poison, flying, fighting, dark, normal, steel, and fairy. And based on this listing, it makes me chuckle that steel and fairy are kind of the last types to get the gyms, which says to me those are going to be like really tough battles, hopefully. And the normal gym being like the sixth one also says it probably be a tough battle, but we'll see. They may be very easy. Pokemon's not known for its difficulty. The margin system appears to be a distinct type-based gameplay mechanic, likely tied to environmental or transformation effects rather than traditional gym battles. So we mentioned the research labs previously. There are four main ones, the fire, ice, ground, and rock ones, which are listed as being on the islands. And then there's a psychic one, which is mentioned in as Ocean 1, implying that it's either like its own island in the ocean, or perhaps it's like underwater because whatever they were researching reacted poorly, and the lab went underwater or something like that. That would be kind of a cool angle. They've never really done that before. There's also a mention of a ghost type margin, which has some assets that's tied to it, but there's no mention of a margin research lab for it. So it may be that there are margins for every single type, just these five are the main ones, and these five are the ones that have research labs and are, prevalent to the story. It may be that the others are post game content, which would be kind of fun. If you have to go around finding 13 other quote unquote margins. I assume margin refers to some kind of Pokemon. I assume the margin function comes from a Pokemon of some kind, but we'll see. Next up comes the Nushi, which according to this, Nushi just means Titan. In Scarlet and Violet, Titans were giant versions of regular Pokemon. And once you KO'd them, they would come back for a second round a bit stronger. Like their stats would go up a little bit. So you have to take them down a second time. And some of these battles got really tough actually. But there are 5 apparently in this game, just like there were in Scarlet and Violet. And the types of them are shown as Bug, Electric, Ghost, Water, and Dragon. And for some reason they mention here the Dragon might be a legendary. I don't know if it'll be a legendary. Maybe a pseudo legendary. That'd be a pretty cool fight. And again, this is tentative, so these may get switched around. They may get dropped. You never know. Things change all the time in game development. Next up is we have a new character. I don't know what this character is meant to be. Maybe it's the mother of the main character, perhaps. Like maybe this is a prototype of her. It also gives me a little bit of Manny vibes, so it'd be kind of funny if Manny came back in this game just a little, grown up. Perhaps, but that's just speculation. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Her necklace appears to be some kind of sun, or has a sun motif, but so early days yet. We don't know yet. This is another spoilery thing. The Rotom Scooter is the device that we've seen strapped to the protagonist's bag. So the vehicle itself is basically a hover scooter. But it tethers to one of the Pokemon that you have access to. This may change. They may replace this with more of a ride Pokemon feature or incorporate ride Pokemon into it. But the idea is that if you get like, I don't know, a strong bulky Pokemon attached to this thing, and it pulls you along, kind of like a dog slice sort of mechanic. If the Pokemon is water based, then it can take you over the water. If there's a Pokemon that is flying type, then it's it's a big Pokemon like a Charizard, it could probably fly into the air and take you with it. There's a lot of potential for this mechanic because that could also tie into like HMs. Like you could have a Pokemon attached to it that's fighting type and it could smash rocks for you and stuff like that. Don't know if they'll go down that route, but it would be kind of fun to see. We do see images of the beta version of this attached to a Charizard. So clearly, this is something they're keen to introduce. And it'll be curious to see just how flexible the system is, because like, I assume this works for any Pokemon. So then, what happens if you attach like a Magikarp to it and you're on land? Does the Magikarp just flop around? I'm curious now. Now that I've thought that, I'm curious. So this is going over the development timeline. So the earliest known materials related to this were in May 2021. So apparently they went through a few different options for different regions. So they were looking at Canada, Greece, Nordic countries like Norway, and then the west coast of North America were considered. Um, but apparently they have, creative potential, but also presenting limitations. Which is interesting because I would have thought Canada would have been a very easy place to make a region out of, but and Greece similarly, but I guess not. Um, so they want very they it looks like they really want to keep going with this sort of open world push that Pokemon's been doing recently with Scarlet and Violet, and slightly less so with Legend ZA. Um, I'm not gonna go through the story or anything because that will take ages. But I will stop and talk about this because this is really exciting, and I hope this is in the final game in some form or another. So apparently one of the most ambitious ideas in the project is the seed Pokemon, not a grass type, a seed. This is a single experimental Pokemon designed to act as both a narrative core and a key gameplay system for Gen 10. Unlike traditional evolutions, this Pokemon has no fixed final form. Its appearance and development are shaped by growth, environment, and player interaction, with near infinite variation. The presentations explicitly cite Spore as inspiration, though reinterpreted through Pokemon's emphasis on emotional bonding rather than pure simulation. Players encounter the seed Pokemon early in a coastal resort area. While considered rare, no one has ever witnessed its evolution. According to legend, it only begins to evolve when brought near the islands inhabited by the Storm and Wave legendary Pokemon, with its final form determined by how it is raised and guided. Crucially, the seed Pokemon is not just a creature but a system. Its growth directly affects the world itself, procedurally shaping islands, environments, and ecosystems. It also functions as a progression gate, unlocking access to key locations, including the legendary islands. If retained, the system would represent one of the most radical departures from traditional Pokemon evolution, reinforcing Gaia's themes of growth, harmony, and the interconnected relationship between humans, Pokemon, and nature. So yeah, this is a really exciting idea, and I hope this is in the game. Um, the Seed Pokemon is the one thing that has me the most excited for Gen 10. I think they'll tone this down, though. I think this was really early in the experimental phase. Um, what I think is going to end up happening is that instead of it having like infinite variation, what they'll probably do is it'll be similar to Kirby, where depending on where you train it, maybe. So this is gonna take a while for me to explain. So just try and bear with, but I'll do the best I can. So imagine you have this plain white, I assume white Kirby-esque Pokemon, and we'll say it's normal type to start with because normal is the neutral type. And then you get this Pokemon right early in the game, and they say to you, keep it with you, train it up, look after it, be nice to it. You travel in this open world, you go to whichever area you want, you train it up, you battle it, you let it go. Every time you let it battle and it defeats a Pokemon, depending on the environment you're in, it gains like a point in an invisible stat. And the stat, and the way that works is you would have like it would be like types. So like you'd have an invisible type stats. So like one for normal, one for grass, one for water, one for fire, one for dragon, and so on and so forth. And the way it would work is every time you defeat a Pokemon in an environment based on this type system, you get you get points in that type, and then at a certain point, like let's say level 15 for the sake of argument, this Pokemon does in fact evolve, and it evolves into maybe the front half evolves into like a form that represents the type it has the most points in. So like if it has the most points in fire, then the front end becomes like red, and maybe it has a flame sack and a little horn or something on its head. Maybe if it becomes a ghost type, the front gains a spectral one of those spectral things that costumes have in Japan, the little triangular thing on the head, or maybe there's some wisps that float around its head or something like that. Something simple just to denote that it is a ghost type, and then it changes from normal. I'm running out of breath here. Is changing from normal type to whatever this new type is, right? And it could be that you train it in the city and it stays normal for some reason. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. This is how I would do it. So it evolves once at level 15, you get your initial type. Then what I would do is I would have it reset the invisible stats and start again. This time it's continuing to count, and then when you get to level 30, again, for example, it evolves again. And this time, the back end takes on the appearance of whatever type it has the most points in, or maybe the least points to vary up a little bit. So, like, if it's a bug type, for example, maybe the back end develops butterfly wings, or it develops a stinger, or it could be an ice type with, like, fur on its back to represent, keeping the heat inside itself, stuff like that. So, and that would be its secondary type. So you could, in theory, make this Pokemon any two types that you want it to be. So, like, you can make it fire, ice. You can make it dragon, fairy. You can make it steel, poison if you really wanted to, or a poison fighting, or rock flying, for crying out loud. Any combination in theory would be possible. Making it kind of like a Silvally in a sense, just with two times instead of one. That's how I would do it personally, and I wonder if that's the system they may go with or something similar. Because I can't see them doing a genuine, like, Spore style, near infinite variation. How would that work in Pokemon? It doesn't make any sense. But they've also had so many years to, like, work this into the game. Like, I can't picture them not doing it. I don't know if I'm happy with the idea of this Pokemon, gating progress, so to speak, in certain areas, because that just sounds like, I don't know. I don't like when games force you to select a particular character, in order to partake in the game. Like, Mario RPG is a fantastic game, but I do not like the fact Mario has to be front and center in the party at all times. Similarly, I don't inherently want players to be forced into having this seed Pokemon in order to get to get the best ending. But the idea of a Pokemon whose typing can effectively be whatever you want it to be, that's incredibly tempting. Like, it's not the worst idea I've ever heard, and it's a really clever. If that is what they're doing, that's a really cool idea. I can't wait, personally. I hope that's what they do. I hope something to that effect is what happens. And if we can change whatever type we want, I'm gonna make it like ice poison, or electric ice, or electric fire. Even I've been thinking about that. Just because I really, really want another electric fire type that isn't freaking Rotom. Rotom's got the monopoly on unique types at the moment, and I don't like it. But again, a lot of that was speculation, and I've heard rumor that the Seed Pokemon is in the game, but maybe it's not quite the way we thought it was going to be in this Teraleak information. So I don't know. We'll see. Procedurally generated Pokemon. That's a new one. Maybe in the age of people hating on AI, maybe it's not the greatest idea ever, but we'll see. Moving on, we get a look at the. We don't get a look, but we get to talk about the box legendaries, Wind and Wave. There's two package Pokemon, one for each version. The Storm is an Elder Guardian figure residing on an isolated storm-covered island. It guides humans and Pokemon through the power of wind and accepts only those who have properly raised the seed Pokemon. And then Wave, a counterpart elder figure living on a remote island surrounded by powerful seas. It embodies balance and guidance through the force of waves, and similarly judges the worthiness of the player. So there's a lot of, like, you can kind of see why the villain probably wants to take control of these two legendaries, because if you have control over the winds and the waves, then you control effectively power sources. Like you can have them turning the blades of a wind farm eternally, or a water wheels and stuff like that. We've already kind of seen a hint of that already with the resort's design and what seems to be the hydro-powered base. I think that's probably what they're leaning towards, but we'll see. Um, we're gonna skip a little bit. The legendary Pokemon reside on massive cloud-covered islands inaccessible to most. Entry is only possible by raising the seed Pokemon to a certain state. Inside these clouds, islands are procedurally generated, with a ship encounters an environment determined by the seed Pokemon's growth. Smaller islands serve as raid areas, mid-sized ones connect to other players, and a single large island is reserved for the legendary Pokemon. Not the worst idea I've ever heard, but again, can we not tie this to a single Pokemon that you... Because, like... I want the player who puts the seed Pokemon in the PC to have a similar. I want them to have the same basic experience that any other player would have. I don't like this concept of you've effectively got 5 Pokemon in your team because the 6th one is always going to be the seed Pokemon. But and I'm sure that's not what's going to happen. But I don't like the idea of it. So we'll have to wait and see on that one because we won't get more information until next year. But I'm excited, but I'm ready to wait. 2023, there were early test builds sent out. I'm not gonna go through everything just because it takes forever. This appears to be them testing out things like how far in the distance can you see certain Pokemon. Start with smaller ones at the front, and then they sort of get procedurally larger as they go back. Excuse me. The black ships in these images seem to represent unfinished parts of the player model, so it's likely the bump maps and textures weren't quite finished at this stage of testing, so they were just like, yeah, we've got the models, let's just test them, make sure it all works. And then we come to this, which appears to be a Pokemon Center and a shop, so I assume that's true for the final game as well. The Pokemon Center will also double as a shop, similar to Legends ZA. Got another one where, let's see, we've also got the towing mechanic, the Luminion again, and then we see an environment where Pokemon have health bars over their head. I assume this is meant to be like them testing the UI interface to see how good it looks. I personally am not the biggest fan of this particular look, but I'm sure this is early on. Then you've got a picture of them on the hoverboard, or the hover scooter, what you want to call it. Some more test areas. These are the images we saw earlier. This is supposed to be one of the main characters, like possibly the regional professor. I kind of like that his mustache looks a bit like Warrior's, which I think is meant to invoke the idea of waves, with his eyebrows meant to resemble the wind, so to speak, like wings, sort of thing. I can't wait to see his final design. I hope it's really good. The hotel itself appears to persist. Recent assets reference hotel-related structures in early map zones. What else we got? This is mostly going over errors. So it looks like some of these gym types, they're obviously testing whether or not they want to make these the types initially. Well, no, because if the first couple of gym leaders revealed are grass and poison, then we know these are the types. Margin. So Margin is the internal name of a major Generation 10 gameplay mechanic. Functionality remains unknown, but is likely to environmental or weather-based effects. I'm curious as to how it could be weather-based effects. We have, if you look at the actual... Yeah, if you look at the actual, list of the types, they're kind of weird because rock has sandstorm, fire has sunny day, and then ice has hail, and I suppose you could say ground also has sandstorm technically, even though it's not really. It's a rock type ability rather than a ground one. Um, I do find it bizarre that this is the list of a weather-based mechanic. I can't see that being the case, because like Psychic and Ghost, I can't picture what weather those would be. Like Psychic maybe could have an aurora, and Ghost would be like a spectral mist sort of an effect, but I don't think it's weather. Based on the pulsing of the Pikachu we saw earlier on, I don't think it's weather related. Maybe it's like if you enter a certain zone, then the margin presence becomes stronger or something. Maybe it's like something in the air, like like how there's a virus, or there was a virus called Pokerus in Gen 3 through to about Gen 7, and it would infect your Pokemon, and you gain basically double experience whilst infected. It could be something like that, where this is another life form that isn't Pokemon, but is very. It's Pokemon-like, but it isn't Pokemon, if that makes sense. Um, but I also think the margin effect is going to be tied to legendaries, like even if it's just sub-legendaries. Um, I don't know. What else we got? So it also kind of looks like that Legend ZA at one point was going to have, or at least they were very closely considering boss Pokemon encounters, which technically we do get because we get Rogue Mega evolutions. With the climax being the sort of ultimate one with Mega Floette. Um, but yeah, so let's see. This points out that Game Freak reuses existing project structures and assets as a starting point. So as we saw earlier with Nimona being in one of the screenshots, basically, yeah, they use previous models and characters and stuff just for testing purposes. The fact that there is a hint that I wouldn't think that the Titan thing was coming back if it wasn't for the fact that there are now, in addition, there are types assigned to them. The fact that we have 5 types, and then we have the list of gyms and a list of margin. I wonder if they're doing the 3 path structure similar to Scarlet and Violet. That'd be kind of fun. In Scarlet and Violet, Nushi was the internal codename for Titans, the large boss encounters tied to the Herb and Mystica storyline. These Titans were type-based and covered a limited specific subset of Pokemon types. In Scarlet and Violet, Nushi Titans were associated with the following types: Dragon, Flying, Ground, Rock, and Steel. These corresponded to boss encounters such as Tatsugiri and Dondozo, Bombardier, Great Tusker, Iron Hands, Cloth, and Earthworm. I still have my Cloth, by the way. I like that Pokemon. This established Nushi as a pre-existing boss category, not a new concept introduced in Gaia. Gaia is the codename for Gen 10. Nushi references: when comparing Ikaku and Gaia asset summaries, we can observe new Nushi-related entries and file count variations. Some of these match Scarlet and Violet, while others appear to be entirely new. Following Nushi types appear in Gaia asset summaries and did not exist as Titans in Scarlet and Violet: Electric, Water, Bug, and Ghost. There are new types associated with the Nushi category and strongly suggest that Gaia introduces new Titans beyond the SV lineup. I'm pretty okay with that. As long as I can catch the Titans after the initial confrontation, I'm very happy being able to do that. And also, I want them to be new Pokemon. I don't want all Pokemon to be Titans. That didn't happen in Scarlet and Violet, so I'm hoping that continues to be the case. But yeah, I really, really want these guys, whoever these guys are, I really want them to be good. Some Nushi types representing Gaia assets overlap with Scarlet and Violet, but show differences in file counts and structures. Dragon and Ground. Dragon is also the only type that does not appear in neither in gyms or margin. At this stage, it is not possible to confirm whether Dragon and Ground Nushi will return as bosses in Gaia. Um, yeah, the fact I don't think ground will come back because that seems a bit weird to me. But I don't know. I could go for 6 Titans this time around. As long as I can, like I said, as long as I can catch them afterwards, I'll fight as many Titans as you want. Um, let's see. Excuse me. Biomes. The asset summary is also a reference to clear biome-based world design, likely to find the main types of areas players will explore. Desert has 5 variations. Grassland has 2. Snowfield has 2. Volcano has 2. Wetland has 2. We did see earlier that there were like 3 or maybe 4 lava areas. So maybe volcano literally means a volcano as opposed to maybe a cave with some lava in it. And then wetland appears to be swamp. We saw a poison swamp mentioned as well as a regular one. Snowfield, there's 2. We kind of saw that on the map. Grassland 2, that makes sense. Desert 5, why are there 5 desert biomes? That's very odd to me. I'm sure it'll make a bit more sense when we get the games proper. The map appears to be divided into macro zones labeled with a W prefix, likely standing for world or world area. We've got capital city, we've got a major urban area. I think this is going to be very similarly structured to Scarlet and Violet, where there's one central area, which was the city, and then the rest of it is open world, so you can go wherever you want. Let's see, what else we got? No, not interested. Early Teraleak information. So this is stuff we knew earlier on. We're going to skip this because as much as I'm interested, not that bothered. Yeah, I don't like Riddler-Q, KHU. I'm not the biggest fan. Mainly because of the way he does things. Yeah, I don't love that guy. Love. I just want to see the heart. What else we got? I think that's kind of it. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how this develops. Like I say, it's probably going to be Pokemon Day before we see anything. So that's going to be it for this video. Apologies for it being so long. I just wanted to make sure we went over everything in the Teraleak prior to going through the stuff that is leaked / rumored. So yeah, take all of this with a pinch of salt. Some of this will inevitably change. The seed Pokemon, for example, probably won't have infinite possibilities to it, but I am still excited for it even though. And I really hope a whole bunch of this comes to be true because it looks super cool and I can't wait. But that's me done for the evening. So thank you very much everyone for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed the slightly tweaked visualizer. If there's anything you can think of maybe that I can do to improve it, let me know in the comments, and let me know in the comments as well. Does any of this sort of scream to you, yes, this is going to be awesome, or do you think this is going to be kind of lame? I'm gonna say that this has me pretty excited. I might not sound it, but I'm really excited. Like, my excitement is there. It's just one of those things where I'm like, because it isn't due till next year, I'm tempering my excitement, and then when the marketing cycle starts, that's when my excitement is going to start bubbling over like a little cauldron. But until then, the cauldron is just on a nice, gentle simmer. And yeah, again, like I said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. So hopefully it won't be quite as long next time. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye. Triangle. That was just for me. Bye.